My husband, Julian Blackwood, spent 3 years in a wheelchair pretending to be paralyzed. The night the cruise ship caught fire, a burning beam crushed my legs. I screamed his name, tearing my heart out begging for help. He sat in his wheelchair, watching me coldly. "It's too far. I can't make it over there. Crawl yourself." But the very next second, his first love slipped and fell into the water. Julian suddenly stood up, sprinted to the edge of the deck, and dove into the pitch-black sea. Because of that, my legs were ruined by the fire, and the lack of oxygen damaged my brain. My intelligence remained forever stuck at 6 years old. 3 years later, Julian searched the world for me like a madman, finally finding me begging on the street. He knelt on the ground, his eyes bloodshot. "You've reduced yourself to this just to hide from me? Is it worth it?" I tilted my head, looking at this stranger, and pulled a candy from my pocket to hand to him. "Uncle, your legs are clearly fine. Why are you kneeling like me? Do you want to learn how to beg from me? I only have one candy left, but you can have it." Julian didn't take my candy. "Lily Evans, how long are you going to keep acting?" His voice was very loud. I shrank back in fear, instinctively shielding the broken bowl in my arms. There were $3 in the bowl, money for tonight's dinner. It couldn't be taken away. Seeing I didn't speak, Julian got even angrier. He grabbed my arm roughly. "It hurts. Uncle is bad. Don't hit Lily." I cried out in pain, but my other hand still clutched that candy tightly. That was a reward Jack Wilder gave me this morning because I didn't wet my pants yesterday. Hearing the word uncle, Julian's expression turned even uglier. "Playing the fool," he sneered, his gaze falling on my clenched fist. He probably thought I was hiding something valuable. He forced my fingers open. Lying in my palm was a slightly melted fruit candy, covered in dust. Julian froze for a moment, then a look of immense disgust surged in his eyes. "You're doing all this for that?" He snatched the candy and smashed it onto the ground. His polished leather shoes stepped on it, grinding it into the dirt. "No!" I screamed. "That was my candy." I didn't know where the strength came from, but I broke free from his grip and flopped onto the ground. I desperately used my fingers to scrape the candy powder stuck in the cracks of the pavement. So dirty, but so sweet. I stuffed the candy crumbs, mixed with mud and shoe prints, into my mouth, my face a mess of tears and snot. Sweet, it's sweet. People around were watching, some were filming with their phones. Julian seemed infuriated by my behavior. He grabbed me by the collar and hoisted me up like a chick. "Lily, have you no shame?" I ignored him, just crying as I looked at the candy stain on the ground. "Pay me back. Uncle, pay me back for my candy." Gritting his teeth, Julian threw me over his shoulder and stuffed me into the black luxury car by the roadside. I pounded on the window, watching that broken bowl left all alone on the side of the road. "Money! My money! Jack is going to go hungry." Julian locked the car doors and ordered the driver to drive. He turned his head, staring dead at me, his eyes full of hatred. It would be best if that bastard starved to death. "Lily, since you love putting on a show, I'm taking you back to the place you dread the most. You can act all you want there." The car pulled into a massive estate. It looked familiar, but I was afraid to recognize it. The walls were too white, like a hospital. The lights were too bright, like fire. The servants stood at the entrance. Seeing me covered in filth, they all covered their noses. Julian threw me onto the living room carpet. "Clean her up. Don't let her dirty my carpet." Several maids walked over and roughly dragged me into the bathroom. The faucet was turned on. Hot water gushed out, steaming white. "Ah!" I screamed and shrank into the corner. "Fire! It's fire! Don't burn, Lily." The hot water hitting my body felt just like the tongues of fire on the cruise ship that night. I cradled my head, trembling all over, my teeth chattering. The maids impatiently held me down. "Mrs. Blackwood, stop pretending. It's just water." I struggled desperately, my fingernails scratching a maid's arm. Slap. The maid backhanded me across the face. Crazy woman. When Julian rushed in, I was cowering in the corner of the bathtub like a drowned rat. My clothes had been stripped off. The massive, Hideous burn scars on my back, twisted like tree roots, were exposed to the air. Julian's pupils constricted sharply. He seemed to want to reach out and touch the scars, but his hand stopped in midair. "You really went all out for this act, didn't you?" He gritted his teeth. His voice unreadable. Was it sarcasm, or something else? "Julian." A sugary, delicate voice drifted in from the doorway. Alice White walked in, wearing a white ballet dress. She was so clean, like a white swan. While I was a rat in the gutter, Alice saw the scars on my back. A flash of disgust crossed her eyes, but she quickly replaced it with a look of concern. "Lily, how did you end up like this?" "Julian is doing this for your own good. How could you scratch the servant?" I smelled the perfume on her. I sneezed and pointed at her. "Auntie, you stink." Alice's face stiffened, her smile nearly slipping. Julian immediately shielded Alice behind him, looking at me coldly. "Lily, apologize to Alice." I didn't understand. She was the one who stank, so why did I have to apologize? I pursed my lips stubbornly and said nothing. Julian lost his patience. He turned and took a red box out of the cabinet. He opened it to reveal a pair of red ballet slippers. 3 years ago, that was my most treasured possession. But now, seeing it only made my legs ache. My broken bones throbbed with a dull pain. "Don't you love dancing the most?" Julian threw the slippers in front of me. "Put them on. Dance for me." "I won't dance." I shook my head frantically, shrinking back. "Legs hurt. Fire. Don't burn, Lily." He thought I was protesting in this way. "You won't dance?" 1,288 vouchers. He sneered, picked up the slippers, and strode over to the fireplace. A fire was burning inside. "Since you won't dance, then don't ever dance again." He let go, and the slippers fell into the flames. The fire instantly devoured the red satin. "No!" I stared at the flames, and the last thread of my sanity snapped. The fire. The cruise ship. My broken leg. I was so terrified I wet myself right there. Yellow liquid trickled down my thighs, the acrid stench of urine filling the air. Alice let out a gasp, covering her nose as she buried herself in Julian's arms. Julian stared at the puddle on the floor, his face livid. He finally realized that the Lily, who was once as proud as a peacock, was truly broken. Julian locked me in my room, forbidding me to leave. But I was hungry, my stomach rumbling loudly. I missed the steamed buns my brother used to buy for me. That evening, the villa was bustling. Julian was hosting a family dinner. A servant dragged me downstairs and forced me into a seat at the dining table. The table was filled with delicious food, but I didn't dare touch a thing. Julian sat at the head of the table, with Alice beside him, acting like the lady of the house. "Eat." Julian looked at me coldly. "Aren't you hungry?" I stared at the steak in front of me. It was rare, oozing with blood. I was terrified of blood. I shook my head, my eyes fixed on a small slice of cake in front of Alice. It was strawberry-flavored. It had to be sweet. Alice noticed my gaze. She smiled and pushed the cake toward me. "Sister Lily, if you want it, just eat it. Don't stand on ceremony." I swallowed hard and gingerly reached out my hand. 1,288 vouchers. The moment my fingers brushed the plate, a sharp pain shot through my inner thigh. Alice's hand was under the tablecloth, pinching me viciously. She was using all her strength. "Ah!" My hand jerked in pain. The plate flipped, and the cake splattered onto Alice's white dress. Cream smeared all over her. "Ah!" My dress. Alice screamed, tears welling up instantly. "Sister Lily, if you didn't want to eat it, fine, but why did you throw it at me?" "Julian gave me this. It's a limited edition." Julian slammed his hand on the table and stood up abruptly. "Lily," he glared at me. "Are you really that jealous? You can't even tolerate a dress?" Terrified, I scrambled under the table. I curled up, holding my head and trembling. "Lily didn't do it." Auntie pinched me. "It hurts." Julian didn't believe a word. "Get out here," he roared. "Pick that cake up off the floor and eat it." I didn't want to come out, but I was afraid of being beaten. 288 vouchers. I crawled out and knelt on the floor, reaching out to grab the cake, mixed with cream. Alice pretended to wipe her dress nearby. Her high heel discreetly crushed a glass that had fallen to the floor. The shards mixed into the cream. I didn't understand what was happening. I only knew that if I was obedient, I would get to eat. I grabbed a handful of cake, and sharp glass shards instantly pierced my palm. Blood gushed out. Wah! I wailed in pain, holding up my bleeding hand for Julian to see. Uncle, it hurts. I'm bleeding. Blood dripped onto the carpet, a shocking sight. Julian stared at the blood, his heart giving a violent lurch. He instinctively started to stand up, but Alice suddenly clutched her chest and collapsed into his arms. Julian, my chest feels so tight. I think the stress is getting to me. Julian froze. He looked at Alice, then back at me, my hand covered in blood. Finally, he turned his head away, hardening his heart. Take her away. No bandages and no food. Teach her a lesson she won't forget. The basement was pitch black. No windows. Only the squeaking of rats. I curled up in the corner, licking the wounds on my hand. The blood had dried, sticky and gross. So hungry. I missed Jack so much. Suddenly, a loud bang came from outside the door. Bang! The iron door rattled violently as someone kicked it, followed immediately by the bodyguard shouting and the sounds of a struggle. Get lost. Let me in. That voice, it was Jack. I snapped my head up, a light sparking in my eyes. Jack. I stumbled and ran toward the door. The door was smashed open. Jack rushed in, clutching a bloody iron pipe. He was covered in injuries, his clothes in tatters, but his eyes were terrifyingly bright. Lily, seeing the blood covering my hands, his eyes instantly reddened. Those animals. He threw aside the iron pipe and rushed over to hug me. Don't be afraid. Jack is taking you away. His embrace was warm, smelling of stale bread crusts, but it was the safest scent in the world. But we couldn't leave. Julian had blocked the doorway with even more bodyguards. Wearing a bathrobe, he looked down at us with condescension. Is this that wild man of yours? Julian's gaze fell on Jack's hands holding me, his eyes filled with murderous intent. A scavenger? Jack subtly shielded me behind him. Julian, are you even human? She only has the IQ of a 6-year-old. You're abusing a fool. Julian sneered. A fool? She acts the part better than anyone. He waved his hand, and the bodyguards swarmed forward. Soon, Jack was pinned to the ground. Julian walked over and stomped on Jack's hand. Arg! Jack groaned in pain but gritted his teeth, refusing to beg for mercy. Since this hand dared to touch my woman, let's destroy it. Julian took the baseball bat handed to him by a bodyguard. He raised it high. No! I rushed over like a madwoman. I pushed Julian away, shielding Jack with my scar-covered body. Don't hit Jack. Jack gives Lily candy. You're a bad man. Julian watched me protecting another man like a mother protecting her cub. Jealousy twisted his features beyond recognition. Good. Very good. He tossed the baseball bat to a bodyguard. Since you love him so much, I'll smash his fingers one by one, right in front of your eyes. The bodyguard raised the bat. Jack struggled desperately. Lily, run. Leave me. I stared at that bat. I knew that it hurt. It hurt a lot. I couldn't let Jack feel pain. My gaze fell upon the paring knife on the coffee table. That Annie had said if you do something wrong, you have to pay compensation. Since he wants a hand, I'll give him one. I grabbed the paring knife. Without hesitation, I sliced directly into the little finger of my left hand. Squelch. No! Jack and Julian roared at the same time. Blood sprayed out. The agonizing pain made my vision go black, yet I started to laugh. I picked up the severed pinky finger and, trembling, handed it to Julian. Uncle, I'm paying you back. I'm paying you with my finger. Let Jack go, okay? Julian stared at the severed finger, his entire body frozen in place. His face was even paler than mine. Before I passed out from the pain, my hand was still tightly clutching Jack's hem. Jack, it doesn't hurt. The hospital smelled bitter. When I woke up, my left hand was wrapped in thick gauze. It felt heavy, as if a stone were tied to it. Jack wasn't there. Only Julian sat by the bed. His stubble had grown out, and his eyes were bloodshot. He looked more like a patient than I did. Seeing me awake, his hand trembled. "Lily." I shrank into the quilt, exposing only my eyes to watch him warily. "I paid you back with my finger." I whispered, "Can I go home now? Jack is waiting for me." Julian felt a sharp pain pierce his heart. "This is your home," he said in a hoarse voice. "I am your husband. I am Julian." I shook my head. "No." I pointed to the overpass far outside the window. "That is home over there. This is a cage." And I tilted my head, my eyes clear yet cruel. "I don't know Julian. I only remember that hubby doesn't want Lily anymore." Julian's face instantly turned deathly pale. Just then, the doctor walked in with a report. His expression was grave. "Mr. Blackwood, the results are in." The doctor hung several films on the light box. "The patient has old injuries to the hippocampus, along with severe stress-induced atrophy. Simply put, her intelligence level is indeed only that of a 5 or 6-year-old. This isn't an act. This is irreversible damage." The doctor paused, then pointed to another film. "Also, the burns on her body were caused 3 years ago. Some wounds were deep enough to expose the bone. It is a miracle she survived without timely treatment back then. Furthermore, her leg bone suffered a comminuted fracture and healed with a deformity, which is why she limps." The hand holding the report, Julian's hand, began to tremble violently. 3 years ago. The cruise ship fire. He thought she was lying, thought she had escaped long ago. It turned out impossible. Julian muttered to himself. "She's faking it. She's the best at lying." "Julian." Alice rushed in, interrupting Julian's thoughts. She was holding a thermos, looking anxious. "That garbage picker must have bribed the doctor. Lily used to have best actress-level acting skills. What is a little trick like this to her?" Alice pointed at me. "Look at her eyes. Do those look like the eyes of a fool? She is clearly plotting against you." I looked at Alice's ferocious face and hid behind Julian in fear. "Bad lady, wants to kill Lily." Julian looked at my instinctive reaction, then at the hysterical Alice. For the first time, the fortress in his heart cracked. If she really had lost her mind, then for these past 3 years, what had he done? He had forced a wife with the IQ of a 6-year-old, covered in wounds, to become a beggar. He even forced her to cut off her finger to atone. Julian felt the metallic taste of blood surge in his throat. Julian refused to accept it. To verify if I was pretending to be stupid, he forcibly arranged so-called rehabilitation training. In reality, he was forcing me to dance. Inside the villa's dance studio, mirrors covered all 4 walls. I am terrified of mirrors. The person reflected there looks like a ghost. My leg is broken. I can't move. I clung to the pillar, refusing to let go for the life of me. The physical therapist was a burly, rough man. He was hired by Julian, and he answered only to him. "Mrs. Blackwood, just bear with it." He forcefully yanked at my stiff, atrophied leg. Ah! Cold sweat poured down my face from the agony, my screams echoing through the empty room. It was a raw, physical agony. It felt as if my tendons were being torn right out. "Julian, help me," I sobbed, instinctively crying out the name carved into my very bones. Julian stood in the doorway, a cigarette between his fingers. His fingertips trembled slightly when he heard me call his name. But he didn't move. He was waiting for me to drop the act, stand up, and dance a perfect Swan Lake. Alice, dressed in her leotard, pirouetted elegantly nearby. "Lily, look, it's so simple. You used to be the principal dancer. What's a little pain to you?" She spun over to me, looking down from above as I lay on the floor. In a voice only the two of us could hear, she whispered, "You look just like a toad with a broken leg. Julian is disgusted just looking at you." I didn't understand what a toad was, but I understood disgusted. Alice covered her mouth and giggled. "Oh my, look at you, stuck on the ground like a lame duck." The word duck pierced my brain like a needle. It was what the teachers used to call the students who couldn't dance well. I suddenly lunged, sinking my teeth into Alice's calf. Clamped down hard, refusing to let go. "Ah!" Alice screamed, kicking frantically in my head. "Let go! You crazy bitch!" Julian rushed over and shoved me away. My head slammed heavily into the mirror. Crash! The mirror shattered. Covered in blood, I collapsed into the shards. I stared blankly at the ceiling. Julian stared at the reflection in the broken glass, at the woman with the bloodied face and vacant eyes. Suddenly, she overlapped with the Lily who had shone so brightly on stage 3 years ago. The massive contrast suffocated him. He looked at the bite mark on Alice's leg, then at the blood on my head. He turned away, as if to escape. "Lock her up. She doesn't eat until I say so." He couldn't bring himself to look at me. The wound became infected. That night, I spiked a high fever. It felt like I had been thrown into a furnace. My dreams were filled with fire, red flames, black smoke, and that man sitting in the wheelchair watching me coldly. "It's too far. Crawl there yourself." "Julian, help me." I curled up on the bed, muttering incessantly. "My leg hurts so much, don't leave me behind." The servant on night watch was too exhausted and had fallen asleep in the front hall. The door was quietly pushed open. Alice slipped inside. She was holding a pillow in her hands. The moonlight fell on her face, making her look terrifyingly sinister. She walked to the bedside and heard me calling Julian's name. Her eyes instantly turned venomous. "The fool still remembers his name? Lily, why don't you just die? As long as you're dead, Julian will be mine and mine alone." She raised the pillow and smothered it viciously over my face. MMPH. A sense of suffocation hit me instantly. I struggled desperately, flailing my hands and feet. But I was too weak. I couldn't push her away at all. Air was running out, my lungs feeling like they were about to explode. Just as my vision started to go black, and I thought I was going to die again. The door was slammed open. "What are you doing?" Julian's voice exploded like thunder. He was frantic, coming to see if I was dead yet. Alice jumped in fright and frantically let go. She pretended to be helping me adjust the pillow. "Brother Julian." Sister Lily seemed out of breath. I was helping her adjust the pillow height. I gasped greedily for fresh air. The high fever gave me hallucinations. I saw Julian's face clearly. In that instant, time seemed to flow back 3 years. I wasn't silly yet, and he hadn't had a change of heart. "Hubby," I cried out, reaching to grab his sleeve. "Save me, it hurts." It was a flash of lucidity, like the last rally before death. Julian froze on the spot. This was the first time in 3 years I had called him hubby. Not uncle. It was hubby. Tears instantly welled up in his eyes, and he wanted to reach out and hug Lily. "I'm here." But in the next second, my eyes lost focus. My hand dropped weakly. I turned back into that fool. Terrified, I pointed at Alice and shrank into Julian's arms. "Bad auntie wants to kill Lily, pillow smother." Julian snapped his head to look at Alice. For the first time, there was suspicion and murderous intent in his eyes. "Get out." Julian started investigating. He had Jack bailed out of the detention center. When Jack came out, he was carrying a black plastic bag. He threw the bag directly onto Julian's office desk. "This is what she wrote on things she picked out of the trash can," Jack said coldly. "Read it yourself. After you're done, you'll know what kind of beast you are." Julian opened the bag with trembling hands. Inside were cigarette packs, scrap newspaper, and even candy wrappers. They were covered in scrawled writing. Some characters were huge, some tiny like a primary school student's handwriting. "My leg hurts so much today. It rained, and brother picked up fever medicine for me. The medicine is so bitter, I want candy. Saw someone who looked like uncle, but he didn't look at me. Am I too dirty? I really want to dance, but my legs are so ugly like centipedes. I don't remember who I am, but I remember I loved someone. That person's name is. The name part was scribbled out in black. The paper was even poked through. Obviously, she wanted to write it, but didn't dare. Julian flipped to the end. It was a drawing, drawn on a KFC tray liner. It depicted a raging fire. A man in a wheelchair, with his back to a little girl, ran away holding another woman. The little girl's legs were broken, and she was crying. Below the drawing was a line of text. Hubby doesn't want Lily anymore. Lily doesn't want hubby anymore either. Lily wants to save the candy for brother Jack. A tear smashed onto the paper, blurring the word, hubby. Julian looked at those words, his heart aching so much he couldn't breathe. He finally understood. For these past 3 years, Lily had been through hell. And he was the one who had pushed her into that hell with his own hands. He thought she was living in luxury, thought she was hiding from him. In reality, she was begging, scavenging through trash, and enduring sickness. Yet he was still blaming her, still torturing her. Arg! Julian let out a beast-like roar. He clutched those papers tightly to his chest, fell to his knees, and wept uncontrollably. The truth was too heavy. It crushed him, threatening to snap his spine. He looked at Jack, his eyes filled with pleading. Can she ever get better? Jack sneered and turned to leave. Julian, deep affection that comes too late is worth less than weeds. Julian began to make amends like a madman. He covered every sharp object in the villa with soft padding. He kicked Alice out. He bought countless expensive candies and piled them high in my room. Imported ones, limited editions, ones wrapped in gold leaf. He carefully held a box of exquisite chocolates and walked up to me. Lily, have some candy. His smile was uglier than crying. They're all yours. Eat as much as you want. I glanced at the exquisite box and shook my head. No. I took a step back. This isn't wrapped in paper. It's dirty. I pulled out the candy wrapper from my pocket, the one he had stepped on, the one I had secretly picked back up. I unfolded it like a treasure. It was still stained with dirt. This one is sweet. I licked the wrapper, revealing a satisfied smile. Julian felt as if a knife were twisting in his heart. That was the one he had crushed with his own foot. He tried to come over and hug me, wanting to take away that dirty wrapper. Lily, that's dirty, don't eat it. Ah! I screamed and dodged away, squatting on the ground with my head in my arms. Uncle, don't hit me. I'll be good. I won't eat candy anymore. Don't hit my hands. Julian's hand froze in midair. He broke down. With a thud, he knelt before me. Lily, I'm Julian. I'm your husband. Look at me, please. He cried like a lost child unable to find his home, clutching the hem of my dress, humble as the dust. I was wrong, I was really wrong. I'm okay. Just don't be afraid of me. I tilted my head, looking at this strange man. My eyes were clear, yet cruel. Uncle, your legs aren't broken. Why are you kneeling? I pointed at his legs. Do you want to beg for food too? But I don't have any candy left. No matter how he explained, no matter how he begged. In my world, the person Julian no longer existed. There was only bad uncle and good brother. Julian finally understood. Some wounds last a lifetime. Forgetting was the greatest punishment for him. Alice was not resigned to her fate. Her reputation ruined and driven out of the rich and powerful family, she wanted to drag me down with her. She instigated the company's shareholders to force Julian to take me to the press conference. The reason was, if Mrs. Blackwood was a madwoman, it would affect the stock price. Julian wanted to refuse. But I heard Alice on the phone. She said Jack was waiting for me at the press conference. To find Jack, I sneaked out while the bodyguards weren't paying attention. At the press conference, flashbulbs popped like lightning, click click. Terrified and at a loss, I stood on the stage, trembling. Brother Jack, I whispered. Alice suddenly rushed out from backstage, feigning a fall, and yanked hard on the hem of my gown. Oh my! Just as I stepped forward, Ryop the dress slid down instantly. A deathly silence fell over the venue. Under the high-definition lenses, the burn scars twisting like gnarled tree roots across my legs were exposed for all to see. On my thigh, a chunk of flesh was missing entirely. It had been gouged out by a falling beam when I saved Julian years ago. Hideous. Grotesque. like centipedes crawling all over my once fair legs. The reporters gasped in horror. The live stream comments exploded instantly. Oh my God. This has to be abuse. I thought she was faking her illness? Are those wounds fake? Those are old scars. From 3 years ago. Didn't Julian claim she was unharmed? I frantically tried to cover my legs, sobbing as I cried out. Don't look. Ugly. Lily is ugly. Don't look at the centipedes. Julian rushed onto the stage like a madman. He stripped off his suit jacket and wrapped it tightly around my trembling body. With bloodshot eyes, he roared at the cameras. Get out. All of you, get the hell out. If anyone dares to film, I'll kill them. He held me as if I were a rare, fragile treasure. But it was too late. In that moment, everyone saw the truth. Julian's persona of the devoted lover crumbled. Alice's malice was also exposed by the netizens. I curled up in Julian's arms, still weeping. The dress is ruined. I'm going to get beaten again. Julian's tears dripped onto my face, shockingly hot. No beating, no one dares to touch Lily. Alice had gone completely mad. Treated like a pariah, she decided to drag me down with her. While Julian was dealing with a public fallout, she bribed the driver and kidnapped me, taking me to an abandoned factory in the suburbs. Fire, once again. Alice doused the area in gasoline and set the surrounding scrap tires. Ablaze. Lily, go to hell. Alice held a lighter, laughing maniacally. Once you're dead, Julian will be mine. He'll only remember me. The raging fire awakened my deepest fears. Fire, fire. I clutched my head and screamed, as if I were back on that cruise ship 3 years ago. That was hell. Julian and Jack arrived simultaneously. Stop. Julian looked as if his eyes would burst with rage. Seeing Julian, Alice laughed even more gleefully. Julian, you're here? Perfect. We can all die together. She tossed the lighter. Boom dash. The fire spiraled out of control instantly, and beams began to fall. Julian and Jack charged into the sea of fire simultaneously. The fire was too intense. Only one person could be saved. This time, Julian didn't hesitate. He rushed to me and shoved away a burning beam just as it was about to crash down, just like when I saved him all those years ago. Crash. The burning timber slammed heavily onto Julian's back and crushed his legs. Splurt. He coughed up a mouthful of blood, but shielded me with everything he had. Lily, don't be afraid. He looked at me, his gaze as gentle as water. This time it's my turn to save you. Go. Now. He shoved me toward Jack, who had just reached us. Get her out of here. Jack scooped me up and dashed toward the exit. Julian was trapped in the flames. The beam pinned his legs. He couldn't move. I rested on Jack's shoulder and cast a glance backward. Amidst the firelight, Julian was watching me. He was waiting for me to show even the slightest hint of reluctance to leave. But there was none. My eyes held nothing but terror of the fire. Run, Jack, run. I urged Jack on, not sparing a single glance at the man being devoured by the flames. Julian stared at my indifferent retreating figure. Amidst the inferno, he revealed a bleak, desolate smile. This was retribution. Back then, he hadn't saved me. Now, I wouldn't save him either. Fair. Julian survived. The firefighters arrived just in time, but he remained in a coma for 3 months due to severe injuries. When he woke, his legs were truly paralyzed. The nerves had been crushed. He would never stand again. The first thing he did upon waking was to ask for me. Where is Lily? The assistant lowered his head, not daring to meet his gaze. Mr. Blackwood. Jack took Mrs. Blackwood, no, Miss Evans, away. Where did they go? I don't know. No one can find them. Julian searched the world for me like a madman. He sold his company, sold his villa, all to find that silly girl who loved sweets. 1 year later, in a remote seaside town, Julian finally found me, beneath the setting sun. Wearing a clean floral dress, I spun clumsily on the beach. Though I still walked with a limp, my smile was radiant. Jack sat nearby, holding a bag of creamy milk caramels, peeling a wrapper for me. "Jack, I want more." I opened my mouth, like a fledgling waiting to be fed. Jack popped the candy into my mouth with a doting look. "Easy now, or your teeth will rot." Julian sat in his wheelchair, separated by a white railing. He watched this scene from a distance.
His tears had run dry.
He pushed his wheelchair forward, wanting to get closer. The sound of wheels crunching over the sand caught my attention. I stopped spinning and turned my head,
And saw him.
Julian's heart leaped into his throat. He parted his lips, wanting to call out my name, Lee, but I merely gave him a faint, indifferent glance. My gaze was unfamiliar, wary, as if looking at a stranger, or perhaps a beggar. I turned and hid behind Jack, pointing a finger at Julian. "Jack, there's a strange man over there. He keeps staring at my candy." Jack looked up and cast a cold glance at Julian. In that gaze, there was mockery and the pity of a victor. Jack took my hand, blocking Julian's line of sight. "Ignore him," Jack said to me gently. "That's just a beggar." I nodded, realization dawning on me. Oh, how pitiful. I crumpled the candy wrapper I had just peeled into a ball. I walked over to a trash can and tossed it in. Then, holding Jack's hand, I walked away without looking back. "Jack, are we going to have fish?" "Yes, we'll have fish." The setting sun stretched our shadows long across the sand. Julian sat all alone in his wheelchair, watching my retreating figure disappear completely into the light and shadow. With trembling hands, he wheeled himself over to that trash can. Ignoring the filth, he reached in and picked up the wrapper I had thrown
away.
He clenched it tightly in his palm
And pressed it against his chest.
"Lily." He broke down sobbing, crying like a piece of trash abandoned by the entire world. The sea breeze blew past, carrying away the final sigh. Julian didn't leave. He rented a tin shack just 200 meters from that small white seaside villa. It was damp, cold, and reeked of fish. But to him, it was paradise because he could see Lily just by opening the window. The seaside air was heavy with moisture. His paralyzed legs, devoid of sensation, developed pressure sores. They festered and oozed pus, emitting a foul stench. He didn't go to the hospital, nor did he take any medicine. He just pressed that candy wrapper under his nose, inhaling desperately, as if that faint, lingering sweetness could mask the rot on his body. On the day winter set in, the sea wind was fierce. Lily, wearing a red wool hat, was building a sandman in the yard. Jack went inside to get a scarf. The wind blew my hat away. 288 vouchers. It rolled and rolled, landing right under the window of the tin shack. I squatted down to pick it up, looked up, and saw Julian inside the window. Julian was emaciated beyond recognition, his eyes sunken, looking like a skeleton. Terrified, he tried to hide, but his wheelchair got stuck. I looked at him curiously through the glass. Julian held his breath, his heart pounding wildly. He thought, even if she just cursed him as a bad uncle, it would be enough. I watched him for a few seconds, then suddenly grinned. I pulled a candy from my pocket, unwrapped it, and popped it into my mouth. Then I breathed onto the window pane. A layer of white mist formed on the glass. She drew a smiley face in the mist. "Uncle, it's cold out. Make sure you dress warmly." With that, I put on my hat and skipped away. Jack chased after me with a scarf, wrapping me up tight. Julian froze in his wheelchair, tears stinging the cracked skin of his face. I didn't recognize him anymore, not one bit. In my eyes, he was just a strange, homeless man who needed some kindness. There wasn't even hate, only oblivion. The end.